Funding for this program is made possible by Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield. Thank you.
Every 65 seconds, someone in America develops Alzheimer's disease.
It's really scary. This is a scary disease.
Heartbreaking. It's so upsetting to the patient to know that they're going to continue to decline.
Fear. Fear for the individual who's diagnosed of what's to come.
Right. She was the youngest of your aunts.
It's a cruel disease, and it has a target.
Women, we're at the forefront of this disease, and we're more likely to have Alzheimer's disease, but we also are the caregivers.
Which one you feel comfortable with? Do you want to put the mayonnaise on? It's a challenge, both emotionally, financially.
It is so guilt-ridden. We feel embarrassed because there's times we get angry.
And frustrated over what's known about this disease and what's unknown.
This is a neurodegenerative disorder. The neurons are disappearing.
The brain develops plaques and tangles, abnormalities.
And we don't know why.
But years of study have revealed some hard facts.
It is not a normal part of aging. Women do live longer. You go back to what's the greatest risk factor, and that's age.
It's about 10 years that takes to develop Alzheimer's disease. This person here is going to have very, very mild memory problems.
I'm going to need you to scoot up just a little bit.
In this clinical trial, researchers in Pittsburgh are testing a drug on people to see if they can slow down the onset of memory loss.
It will be very warm.
Close your eyes.
Here, participants in the study give their time knowing they may never see the benefits.
If I can do anything, maybe not for me right now, but for the future.
They will help the next generations.
Until then, people living with Alzheimer's and their caregivers keep living and loving and learning.
We have to understand this disease. We can't be afraid of this disease.
A disease that robs memories.
All those years are gone.
And overwhelms.
This disease sometimes is referred to as the long goodbye.
It's a goodbye that can last for years. And for now, families have very few choices.
You only get one mom, and that's my commitment to her, is to make sure that she's living as happy of a lifestyle as she possibly can.
My mom was a Spitfire. She graduated from high school in 1947, moved away to go to nursing school and never moved back home. Had a job until she had children, which was unheard of at the time. Women didn't work once they were married.
And Jessica Pileski kept working until her retirement from nursing in 1989, a 25-year career.
Oh, she's dropping.
This is Jessie's daughter, also a nurse in Pittsburgh. Carol is Jessie's middle child.
My brother is 4 years older than I am, David, and then I have a sister that's 3 years younger than me, Judy. We always saw my mom as different from the other moms, very outgoing, also very opinionated.
But today, at age 89, Jessie is frail and hardly speaks. She's in a personal care home with mostly women.
There you go.
Today, like Jessie, some of them are cradling dolls to help calm them.
What was your dog's name?
I don't know.
Remember Teddy?
I'll tell you, yeah.
In 2012, Jessie was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, the most common form of dementia. Dr. Carol Schramke is a neuropsychologist for the Allegheny Health Network.
Alzheimer's causes people to have memory problems, and over time it is terminal. People become progressively more impaired. The brain develops plaques and tangles, abnormalities, and we're not exactly sure what's happening in the brain. Eventually cells die, the brain atrophies, it gets smaller over time.
And then any number of medical complications can lead to death. Jessie's family history with Alzheimer's is not that uncommon. Her mother also suffered and died from the same disorder.
Get your feet set. Okay, here. Hold your baby. Hold on to me. Let's go.
Looking back, Carol believes symptoms were present long before her mom's diagnosis.
Well, we didn't notice it at first at all. We kind of missed it. People with dementia issues, when they first start, are very good at hiding them. And we asked my mom to go in and make scrambled eggs. Heard all this rambling, banging in the kitchen. She comes out about 5 minutes later and laughing and says, "I don't remember how to make eggs." And I can remember my sister just saying, "Oh my gosh." In hindsight, we missed a lot.
That's partly because Jessie lived in Florida, far from her daughters in Pittsburgh and Dallas.
You don't want to burden your daughter. You don't want to worry people. And so it can frequently be very hard, especially if you're not living with someone, to recognize that things are changing.
For years, Carol and her sister took turns bringing their mother into their homes, keeping the doors locked and secure. Then something happened.
She had climbed up onto a chair very quietly and opened the front door. I live by two very busy roads, and that was, I was panicked.
Jessie's confusion kept getting worse, so Carol decided a memory care facility was best.
It was beautiful, it was wonderful, but it was extremely, extremely expensive. And in 3 years, we went through all my mother's money from the sale of her house, $80,000.
Carol later found a more affordable location near her home, north of Pittsburgh.
Her pension and Social Security covers what the monthly cost is, because there's no insurance coverage, there's no Medicare and Medicaid coverage for memory care. So my siblings, we pick up the incidentals, her prescriptions, her incontinence care, that kind of thing.
Morning has broken.
The personal care home has worked out well for both Carol and her mom. During activities like this, residents seem to latch on to old memories and find comfort.
Sheila, I have communion for you, the body of Christ.
Okay, thank you.
They're later joined by children from a nearby child development center for a round of kickball.
Kick it right here to Miss Marion. Give her a kick. There. Whoa.
It's an activity that most seem to enjoy, and so does Jessica, at times.
All right, Jessie, give it a kick. Oh, no.
What are you doing?
Are we done playing?
Brandy Bankston knows each resident well. She runs this facility.
So with Jessie, it's a flip of the coin. She can be having a great day all day, and then it's almost like you flipped a switch, and now she is no longer having a great day. If she tells you no, by the way, it's no.
That anger and anxiety is indeed helped by those baby dolls. Jessie thinks hers is real.
Some family members have a hard time with that. It seems unnatural to them that mom would think that that baby is alive. It's something that is innate, I think, in most women. We're nurturers by nature, so the babies give them a sense of purpose. It fills a need.
They have to live with me.
They have to live with you?
One time she said to me, "I don't know why you keep calling me mom. You're not my daughter." And I was crushed. And she saw that she upset me, and I calmed down, and she said, "Look, you're a nice girl. You're just not my daughter." It was pretty devastating that she forgot me.
Jessie has lost 30 pounds in the last year. She's now also in hospice care.
I grieve my mother's death every day I see her. This is a scary disease. There's nothing anybody can offer us.
There is no discrimination. Anyone with a brain, unfortunately, is at risk.
And that's the harsh reality of Alzheimer's disease. Medications can temporarily improve cognitive function and quality of life. But right now, there isn't a cure. Sarah Murphy works for the Alzheimer's Association Greater Pennsylvania chapter.
We don't know what ultimately causes Alzheimer's disease, but we do know that it is not a normal part of aging. We know that 1 out of 9 Americans over the age of 65 has the disease.
That's 5.5 million people, and the problem is only expected to get worse. By the year 2050, the number of people with Alzheimer's is expected to nearly triple, and almost 2/3 of those affected are women. In fact, women in their 60s are twice as likely to develop Alzheimer's as they are to get breast cancer.
We don't ultimately understand why women are more likely to get Alzheimer's disease. We do know that women do live longer. You go back to what's the greatest risk factor, and that's age.
Not only are women more likely to have Alzheimer's, they're more likely to be the caregiver of someone with Alzheimer's. Many will quit jobs, reduce their hours, or even retire in order to care for a loved one.
Oh, Mommy.
There's a huge financial toll. There's a huge emotional toll, and physically there's frequently a big toll. If this is somebody who's a spouse, if the spouse is also in their 60s, 70s, or 80s, they probably have their own health issues that they're struggling with as well.
This disease sometimes is referred to as the long goodbye. Women taking on this role as a caregiver, they're going through an emotional roller coaster daily, weekly, hourly. The feelings of denial, the feelings of guilt, the feelings of anger, the feelings of sadness.
We get angry at our loved one. We feel guilty because we wish, why can't this just be over?
This is Carol, may I help you?
And we hide it. We don't reach out and we don't ask for help.
Alzheimer's is the 6th leading cause of death in the U.S. As with most illnesses, an earlier diagnosis is best.
If you're recently diagnosed, talk about it. If your circle of family and connections, let them know that you want to be a part of that care planning process.
And caregivers need a support system of their own.
People would say, let me know if you need anything. Well, I'm not going to reach out to you and say, could you come over just so I could shower and do my hair? It's a 24/7. It's frustrating, it's tiring, and an expensive disease.
Louise Lowry looks like the picture of health. At 77, she's slim, trim, and energetic.
I feel healthy, I feel good, and still love people.
My mom has always been outgoing, willing to try new and different things. She's worked as a social worker initially. She picked up a part-time assignment as a paraprofessional in the Pittsburgh public school system, and that's where she finally retired. She raised 2 children single-handedly after my dad passed away in 1973, and always encouraged us to try new things.
How about some fruit?
But a few years ago, Louise's daughter, Adrienne, realized her mother wasn't on top of things as she once was.
I talk to my mom almost daily, and so she says, oh yeah, the other day I had to go down in the basement and I had to put boots on because there was about 3 inches of water down there. And it was just very casual. It didn't register with her as I would have expected.
More incidents like that convinced Adrienne she needed to intervene.
And so then I said, okay, I got to make some hard choices, and I got to step away and take care of my first priority, which is my mother.
So Adrienne took a hiatus from her job as an IT executive in Atlanta, where her husband and 2 teenage children also live.
Tomorrow you go to the doctor's first, right?
Now Adrienne spends much of her time in Pittsburgh, taking her mom to doctor appointments and helping her settle into an apartment in Highland Park.
So I've been to Pittsburgh 14 times this year. And so 14 times back and forth, all while trying to balance my own family in Atlanta as well.
And she's worked hard to keep that balance, handling 2 households, and more importantly, learning the cause of her mother's lax, uncharacteristic behavior.
So after, some extensive testing from the neurologist, at least the first wave of it, there are early signs of dementia and Alzheimer's. Also, there is an impact from smoking.
If you have other pathological processes that are damaging your brain, your symptoms will show up earlier. And so, but Mrs. Lowry is a confirmed smoker and is not interested in stopping. And even though you don't need me to tell you again that we'd rather you stop smoking.
I would rather even stop myself, but I think it's so automatic now. It's been like after dinner, smoke a cigarette. Used to be after breakfast, smoke a cigarette.
Louise's mother also developed Alzheimer's and eventually died from the disease. Louise, though, is still at a stage where she can do most things on her own.
Now, these are some awful roads right here.
We've encouraged her only to drive to places that she is very familiar with, such as the senior center, church, a few friends' houses.
For now, Louise is holding her own.
Don't forget, we got to write down the appointments for tomorrow.
But Adrian's concerns go beyond her mom's diagnosis.
She's more guarded. Having been independent for so long, she's used to being in control of the situation. And now there's cases where she lacks that control. I think that causes her some angst.
Health-wise, I feel great. Head-wise, I do forget things, and I'll remember it at some other time when I don't really even need to bother remembering, And it'll pop up there just like a nice big picture on a screen. And I'm saying, that was 2 days ago. So I don't like that part so much.
Well, good morning and welcome to the H.J. Heinz collection.
Louise and many others with Alzheimer's are finding ways to make the most of life, and more places like this are opening their doors to support them.
What do you think was the first product that Mr. Heinz made?
Ketchup.
Everybody thinks ketchup. It was horseradish.
Louise and her cousin Helen are at Pittsburgh's Heinz History Center. This is a tour designed especially for people with early-stage Alzheimer's and dementia.
So the program is called Bridging Connections. It's one we developed in conjunction with the Alzheimer's Association. And we were looking for opportunities to connect people in an activity that they could build a sense of belonging and have fun.
So did you all eat ketchup when you were little?
Oh, yes.
So when we started our training with the Alzheimer's Association, one of the things that they cautioned us about was not using the phrase, "Do you remember when?" They also said that Alzheimer's is a bit like a book with the pages being ripped out.
Wouldn't you say it was a clean environment?
Very
to work
clean. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't think ketchup would be anywhere near that.
No, you wouldn't. You're absolutely right.
When we started thinking about doing a program here, we found there were very, very few history museums doing that.
When it comes to museums and memory, Dr. John Zeisel is an innovator. He has created groundbreaking programs which pair art with memory care.
Music is never lost. Art is never lost. Dance is never lost.
Dr. Zeisel is from Massachusetts. He visited the Carnegie Museum of Art in Pittsburgh, which offers a program called In the Moment.
So one of the things that art does is it jogs those memories so that people go back and remember things, recent things and long ago things.
Dr. Zeisel is also the founder of the I'm Still Here Foundation. When the mind of a loved one seems like a fading canvas, he believes art can return some of the color.
It makes the connection between the memories that are still there, their personhood, who they are, and their access to it.
I wanted to welcome you to the Carnegie Museum.
The idea is that you are in the moment with the people that you're working with. They are in that moment. They're not necessarily recalling things that they did the previous day, and so we try to really engage them in front of works of art to kind of unlock some of those memories and thoughts and ideas and responses.
Today, the Carnegie welcomes members of the Anathan Club Adult Day Services. These chairs grab their attention immediately.
Dolores likes the one down here at the bottom. What makes you like that one?
Just because it's like that.
I enjoy taking my members out. They get to seeing different things. They question it. Well, I remember this and I remember that. It just jogs a lot of their memories.
Like art, music also has the ability to refresh memory.
Their eyes will change, the smile brightens, even the posture can change.
That's because of these children visiting the Country Meadows Retirement Community in Bridgeville. They're from a school in Mount Lebanon specializing in kinder music.
It's research-driven curriculum that is music education, but it's so much more. We're developing language skills, fine and gross motor, social development, emotional development, cognitive development, bonding with a caregiver.
Kathy reached out to me and expressed a lot of interest in developing an intergenerational music program. I'm always looking for something unique, something special, taking things to the next level with music and movement and sound. And so having the children come in, we see wonderful benefits from that.
Benefits that, in most cases, are only temporary.
Sadly, the stimulation does not last for weeks or days, depending on the individual. That intergenerational relationship carries them for at least 45 minutes to an hour to 2 hours.
Goodbye, Julie. Goodbye, Estee. Goodbye, Lou. So while some people may not remember what they did last week, or maybe they're not even sure where they are today, they're going to remember songs that they loved when they were a child or when they were an adult.
Why do anything if a person doesn't exist anymore? So that's the despair narrative. The I'm still here hope narrative is based on understanding that people who are living with dementia are actually people first. And they are still there in many, many different ways.
You're going to come on in here to the right side.
This is Rachel Pager of Penn Hills. She is 76.
Okay. Have a seat right here on the table, please.
And this PET scan is looking for amyloid plaques in her brain.
I'm going to use a bright light to get you lined up now.
It was a PET scan like this a few years ago that first showed signs of trouble.
It did show that I did have the plaques in my brain. I was a little nervous about it.
And with good reason. The amyloid protein plaque buildup is believed to affect brain function.
We just need you to continue to hold still. Okay?
But there's another reason Rachel is concerned. Her mother had Alzheimer's.
She was diagnosed with Alzheimer's in 1994. My sister and I would take care of her. She died about 3 weeks before she turned 84.
Because of her family history, Rachel enrolled in a clinical trial called the A4 study at the Alzheimer Disease Research Center at Pitt.
I'm not sure that I'm not going to get Alzheimer's. I know I have the plaques to be in this study.
The study looks at people who are at risk while testing an investigational drug that targets amyloid deposits in the brain. The goal of the drug? To slow down memory loss before the disease advances.
People, they have to have a biomarker that shows that the disease is present, but the person is completely normal.
Dr. Oscar Lopez is director of the ADRC. He believes Alzheimer's-related damage begins years before the symptoms like memory loss emerge.
This is a brain, it's very clean. You don't see any amyloid deposition, and you can see here in a person with mild cognitive impairment in red the presence of the disease. And here, as the disease is more advanced, you see more deposition of amyloid in red color. People think it's about 10 years that takes to develop Alzheimer's disease, but it's sort of an estimate. We don't know exactly, because in some people can go very fast.
And then this is going to be your spot over here.
Rachel doesn't know if she's getting the placebo or the actual drug, which binds itself to the amyloid plaque. The hope is that the drug will remove the plaque and slow the decline in memory and thinking.
So every 4 weeks, I come in and have the infusion. It takes about an hour and a half, and I haven't had any adverse effects.
It's been going on for about 2 or 3 years, and it's going to keep going. In order to prove efficacy, you need to follow people for many years.
But finding participants has been a challenge, especially in minority communities. Older African Americans are twice as likely to develop Alzheimer's or other dementias as older whites.
We don't know exactly why. We can speculate that could be related to blood pressure control, diabetes control. People are very reluctant to participate in drug trials. It may be the case that it requires a long-term commitment.
But Rachel is in it for the long haul.
This is something I need to do for my family. I have 5 children, 14 grandchildren, 1 great-granddaughter. I have nieces and nephews from 4 siblings. And so I feel that if I can do anything, maybe not for me right now, but for the future, I think that, I had to do it. There was no question.
It is an epidemic.
An epidemic that's only expected to get worse in the next 3 decades.
It's going to be worse in underdeveloped countries because the standard of living is going to improve and because people will live longer.
I'm a big believer that we probably need to spend more energy preventing this, but it's not sexy. As a culture, we don't tend to fund prevention programs.
For many, prevention would mean a change in lifestyles. The sooner, the better.
A brain-healthy lifestyle. People who continue to stay socially engaged. Being aware of your numbers, knowing your cholesterol, your blood pressure. Being mindful of your physical health and exercise, and also diet and nutrition.
This is a disease that has a profound impact on women, those who develop Alzheimer's and the many others who take on the role of caregiver.
My recommendation is get started early. I didn't want a tragic event to happen before I intervened because I didn't want to deal with guilt.
We get no help from any insurance. We don't get help from the Medicare that they worked for all their life, and it's not right.
The cost of dementia care will just keep growing. For now, these women and their caregivers cannot depend on the research or the insurance, and so they depend on each other.
If we don't find some kind of support, where are we going to be?
She remembers everything, and so I count on her memory as our memory.
For more information on Alzheimer's disease, visit our website at WQED.org/stolen years.